time I realised that something wasn't quite right. I'd been staying over at Graham's house, and I was just having a bath before we went out for the day, and I was just washing like you do, and I just felt a lump and thought, okay, that's not right. I wasn't scared to go to the doctors because I suppose with everything that's in the press and stuff, I know that I have to go and get that checked. And he referred me straight away to see a specialist. They put a needle in it, basically. And if you can draw fluid off of it, it's normally just like a cyst or something like that. But if it doesn't, it's usually something more sinister. So they put a needle into it just in the room, which was not particularly pleasant. And unfortunately nothing came off of it. So they thought, okay, this isn't looking particularly good for you. And while they were doing that, they took a biopsy, so they then sent that away. I went back about a week later. I was going to go into the room on my own, and they were really insistent, have you brought somebody with you? And I was like, I didn't want anybody to be there because I didn't think it was anything to worry about. But they insisted that Graham came in with me, and then they said it's breast cancer. I never worried about the future, I don't think. I mean, certainly the first night that I came home after my diagnosis, I remember lying in bed, like going through my mind what it would be like to die. But I just knew I couldn't just sit there and think about that because it would drive me mad. So I just, next day, just got on with it, basically, and tried not to think about it. The treatment for breast cancer is very different for everybody, but for me, I was told that I'd need the lump removed, so it would be about 6 months of chemotherapy. And I also had radiotherapy for 6 weeks, which is every single day. Yeah, it was a long year of horrible things happening. At the end of my treatment, I was told that the next 5 years were crucial. And if it didn't come back within those 5 years, then you get what they say is the all clear. So I didn't really ever get the all clear at that point. It was a case of let's see how things go. But as far as they were concerned, they were happy with how it had gone. At that moment, we didn't really know what the outcome would be for me. We went to see my oncologist about a week later after I'd managed to get over the MRSA, and we said, what does this actually mean, because we don't really understand. And she said that there's no cure for this, we can't do anything. It's a case of just treating you, but it's not curable. So eventually it will take your life, and the average survival for that type of cancer was only 5 years. So obviously, he still had a 3-week-old baby. It was horrendous. It was really, once you've had a child and your priorities have all changed again, to think that maybe I'd never get to see him grow up was just absolutely the worst thing I could probably ever have heard, definitely.
Where's Devon?
Making sure that Devon remembers me is a massive part of our life, and I think that every time we do anything in our lives, we make sure that there's a part of it being filmed, or photos, or we write about it in his memory book, or we buy postcards where we go, or little, you know, shells from the beach or anything silly like that. We've got memory boxes that are 3 times bigger than the average toy box. But, you know, we want him to be able to open a box and know that every memory that we ever shared together really is in there, and Daddy can say, well, that's when we went to such and such, and do you remember that, or do you not remember that, and this is what we did. And, you know, the memory books are like me telling the story, I suppose. I now have the treatment that I didn't have the first time round, which is tamoxifen and Herceptin, which stops my tumour from growing, but eventually it will get used to that drug and it will just grow anyway. Maybe normally they would spread to lungs, liver or brain for secondary breast cancer. So it's just sort of waiting for that, and we don't know when that will happen. It could be, you know, next week, it could be a month, it could be 2 years, we don't know. But at the moment my tumour is stable, so that's the best that we can hope for, really. I've always been the type of person that doesn't just sit and do nothing, and I was looking for something to do. Lots of people who have cancer, they do turn themselves to charity or setting up their own foundation, but I wanted something that was different. You know, often, for example, carers get forgotten about and it's always about the cancer patient, but I wanted to do something that was just a little bit different. And literally it just was a quick idea, and then it just sort of fell into place that actually, yes, that's the thing I should do, because I've got the experience of being a wedding planner before my diagnosis and I could do it. Also, the emotion, I knew how important it was for somebody to get married because I'd been in that position too. And having cancer myself, I could, you know, sympathise with what they're going through. So it just was like a real random light bulb moment, really, and it just all fell into place. It wasn't really until we started to then do the research into it more and get the suppliers together that actually the suppliers were saying to us, this is superb, this is exactly what we've been looking for. We've wanted a charity to get involved in. There's nothing wedding related out there. We think what you're doing is brilliant. The Wedding Wishing Well Foundation is for people who have got a terminal illness or have a life-limiting illness. So that can be the bride or the groom. But it's open to people who have no savings, who are on benefits and things like that, trying to get through their diagnosis, you know, as best they can.
Lovely.
Everybody has a right to be able to marry the love of their life and not to have a second best wedding that's just chucked together, so that their families can have something as a memory of them as well. It's a lovely feeling to be able to help somebody, because when I stood at the altar on our wedding day, it was the best thing in the world for me, you know, to have finally got there against all the odds, you know, financially, health, everything. Just marrying Graham was the most important thing in my life at that moment in time. And so, as much as our brides and grooms, they give us flowers or they thank us profusely, I don't need to know that, because I know how they're feeling and I know they'll be feeling exactly like what we did, and that makes me really, really happy, definitely. My vision is to be doing as many weddings as we can in a year, to be making the dreams come true of as many couples as we can. think the key to where I've got with my diagnosis is to accept that the chances are is I am going to die. So that's really helped me to accept the future, and so I don't actually dwell on anything now. You know, when that might happen, I don't know. So why spend time worrying about something that might not happen for a year or so? You know, yeah, I guess dying obviously scares everybody, but again, I'm not going to worry about it until I need to worry about it, because I'll waste time. My biggest fear, I think, out of everything is just not getting Devon to the age where he can remember me, because that's the most important, that he can say, oh yeah, I remember when Mummy and I did this. Because if he's got no memory of me, then those things in those boxes are just going to be things we did. You know, he won't be able to relate to them. So I want to get to the point where I've seen him off to school, and hopefully a bit further, so that we can have as many memories together as possible. But dying, you know, I've come to terms with that part, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I just have to hope that, you know, some new drugs come in and maybe they can save me, but the reality is probably won't be in time for me. But I'm not going to waste time worrying about something I can't change.